Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, Friday fictioneer, reader, and your co-host for today for the Australian Book Lovers podcast, coming to you from Wurundjeri Wurrung country.
Thank you, Laurie. And I am Veronica Strachan, aka VE Patton, co-founder and your co-host for today's episode 112. And I am a fantasy, memoir, science fiction and picture book writer, voracious reader of many genres, and I'm also coming to you from Wurundjeri Wurrung country, but on the other side, way up near Tangarong and Jajawarong. And I am pretty excited about episode 112 because tell us quickly about, just to give us a little hint of who you were chatting to.
Oh, I have the amazing pleasure of chatting to Nadine Abrahams this week, and she was fantastic, chatting about romantasy, fantasy, role playing. We had such a great little chat about elves and archery. It's absolutely marvelous. I can't wait for you all to hear our chat this time around. It's fantastic.
Very good. And of course, we have to talk about the weather, naturally enough, because it's been freezing in Melbourne, and Melbourne people love to talk about the weather.
Yes, and it's funny, I had a big argument with one of my bosses this week at work talking about the coldest places in Victoria this week, and I'm happy to say my area dropped to minus 3.4 a couple of days ago in the morning. So I am claiming that one, even though he says it's not the coldest part in Victoria.
Oh, what does he claim?
Well, that there are other towns. There are colder towns in Australia, colder towns in Victoria.
Yeah.
And I was claiming coldest place. So we were discussing the terminology.
Right. Yes,
of place versus town.
Right. Fair enough. Well, we always used to think that it was Ballarat, basically, because...
and that's what he was saying.
That was he saying.
No, Ballarat. And I'm like, no, we had minus 3.4.
Well, yeah, I think it was minus 3. So, no, we didn't quite make it there, but it was very frosty out there. However, that's the perfect time, of course, to stay inside and read a book.
Yes. Absolutely perfect time too.
Yes.
And I was actually looking on the Australian Reads website the other day because I was going to talk about that for the news, but they had this great little thing, and I can't get my page to move at the moment, so that's going to be a little bit of a pain. But they were talking about the libraries at the moment have this great winter initiative where it is reading, coming inside, reading for winter, and have a book, have a chat, have a snack. And I thought that was an absolutely fantastic idea for winter. Did I write it down anywhere else? Oh yes, the Warm Winter Read campaign. So this winter, libraries, only in Victoria though, it may be happening elsewhere, are encouraging adults to harness the benefits of reading for pleasure and to combat the chilly season by curling up with a good book. So all 51 Victorian library branches are participating.
Good.
And they include reading recommendations, a 60-day reading challenge, as well as prizes for readers.
Fantastic.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. We've got a lot to talk about libraries because I got libraries in my news today. So why don't we jump in straight to... Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you... I didn't give you any words last time from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows.
Yes, go for it.
I had a couple that I thought, this is good. All right. So, wait on. I've lost my tag. Oh, there we are. Wrong tag. Okay. Right. did I talk about karanoia before? Have I talked about
Oh,
karanoia?
no, I don't think so.
Okay, karanoia is in fact the terror of the blank page, which can feel both liberating and confining in both the limitlessness of its potential and the looseness of its boundary.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? I thought that's perfect because
That's a great word, particularly when you're starting that new novel.
Yeah.
You finish the other one, you've put it aside, ready for, say, the next book in the series, and you're looking at that blank page. It's like, oh, I might just go make a coffee.
Yeah. Oh, look, I need to vacuum. I never need to vacuum, but I think I need to vacuum. So that's from the Japanese karano, which is blank, and it's pronounced karanoia. How about that? So that is a good one.
That is very cool.
Yeah. And then I like this one, which is called jubilance. It's the quiet poignance of your own responsibility for someone with a mix of pride and fear and love and humility. Feeling a baby fall asleep on your chest or driving at night surrounded by loved ones fast asleep who trust you implicitly with their lives, a responsibility that wasn't talked about or assigned to you, it was assumed to be yours without question. From hub, which is the central part of the wheel that bears the weight, and jubilance.
Interesting.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Interesting one, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, and I think it's something as a worker and as a wife and mother and sister and all those kind of things. I sometimes feel that quiet poignance of your own responsibility for someone, the mix of pride and fear and love and humility. Yeah, it's nice.
I like that.
I quite like it. And then just go on to the word called thrapped.
That's an interesting one.
Thrapped,
all right.
THRAPT. It's an adjective. So you can see if we can use it in a sentence. It's awed at the impact someone has had on your life, feeling intimidated by how profoundly they help shape your identity, having served as a ghostwriter of a work that nevertheless only appears under your name.
So thwapped.
THRAPT. From thrapped, drawn tight as with nautical ropes, and wrapped, carried away with emotion. So thrapped.
Wow, there you go. Interesting.
Yeah. But one thing that did make me think about the jubilance was T.J. Edwards. He and his wife had another little baby on
congratulations.
Twitter, congratulations. Yeah, and he talked about it being some WIPs, works in progress, take a long time. Some take about 9 months, but he didn't have anything to do with the 9 months. So, thank him for recognising his part there. But yes, he had a photo of his beautiful little second child, and yes, that's so why cute. That's a good excuse, really, for being a bit busy. And I know Austin Sheehan too, another father with a new little baby, although his baby's a little bit older now, I think. But yes, they certainly take up your time. So there you go. Thank you, John Koenig. It just makes you think about different things. And I really love it, even though it's called Obscure Sorrows, I think not all of them are sorrows, of course, and they're, emotion, getting emotion into a story is an important thing to do. And I know, our authors work hard on that. Let's talk about the Readers Are Writers Workshop. Gisborne Library, again, another little, tick gold star for libraries. Gisborne Library and Kyneton Library, so up the Macedon Ranges, invited Dr. Rachel Matthews, and we spoke with Rachel and Michael about their books, Never Look Desperate and Late, Rachel and Michael, in a writer's room.
Not long ago.
What the number was. Not that long ago. And Rachel offered to do a Readers Are Writers workshop for us. So I thought, there's one in my local town, like 5 minutes, and it's never 5 minutes. I always have to travel to the city or Bendigo or something like that. So it's always an hour before I get there. So I thought 5 minutes, got to do it. Went down. I reckon there was probably 15 to 16 people down there. So I thought, all these local writers, fantastic.
It was cold morning though.
It was a cold morning, and the library was a little cold. It took a while to warm up, especially as we had the fan on low until we realised that no. So we got ourselves sorted in the family history room at the Gisborne Library, and it was brilliant.
Wonderful. So, and of
Rachel,
course, that's coming up for us, the workshop.
it is
Couple of
coming up
weeks.
for us. Yeah, it was lovely. It just got that creative spark going again because I've been doing a lot of editing and oh my God, that sometimes it feels like a bit of a churn, but it was just permission to write, and she gave these great prompts, and she also Rachel also helped shape some of the fears and things that people had, whether they were beginners or experienced or writers. And everybody there was at a really different level. There was one young girl there, which was fantastic. She had some great stories to write, and there were some older people. And I found out that there was a couple of writers groups in Riddles Creek, which is only 10 minutes away. So sadly they meet on the days I go to work, so that's not quite so easy. But looking for perhaps if I retire in a couple of years from full-time work, I can go there. But it was great. So please encourage everybody, and you can just jump on the front page of the website is probably the easiest. There's an events thing there, which I've managed to work out. Thank you, Wix, for making things automatic. And jump on there, type your name into Google, or you can send me an email, admin@australianbooklovers.com, and just give me your name, and then I've got your email to send you the Zoom link for Thursday, the 1st of August. And of course, what else would you do on a freezing cold Thursday anywhere in Australia? And okay, maybe the north, you're a little bit not quite so cold up there. We've got a couple of Queenslanders have already jumped in, and I know they're Queensland from what they sent in their email. So come along.
Yeah, join us. I'm really looking forward to going through those steps as well. Any tasters that you can give us?
Oh, yeah, I can give you a taste. I'll give you something that I wrote, if you like.
Yes, please.
Let's have a look. So we had to do, one of them was a prompt, and some of it was from conversations that we'd had. So the prompt was a rainbow, an Elvis record, and a bottle of scotch.
Oh, wow. I love it.
And you had to do one sentence, no more than 3 commas and 1 semicolon. As you know, we love semicolons. So there we go.
Wow.
Sharp, bright light through Johnny's captive golden liquid sprayed a rainbow across the discarded Elvis record, transforming the white-suited icon into a cornucopia of colour.
Oh, wow. Love it.
How's that? So that was good. So I had a good time.
Yeah. Definitely. Yes, come and join us for the workshop. It's going to be awesome.
Yes. And we had a lovely handout, which must get on to Rachel and get our sorted for bits and pieces, facts about the Australian writing industry, and places to look at your profile and all sorts of bits and pieces, and some tasks and prompts and bits and pieces. So yeah, lovely. So come along, readers are writers. Beautiful. I think it's time for the news now.
Yes.
Do you want to lead us into the news?
Oh, okay. So, so I was speaking about Australia Reads before, and my computer is running a little bit slow today, so I'm hoping I can get this up. So there's a great article that was on the 27th of June, talking about the benefits of reading for mental health, which has been a bit of a topic. It seems to be a bit in the air at the moment, because it certainly seems to be a bit of a topic online at the moment. So of course and I recommend reading it. You can jump onto that on the australiareads.org.au website. But it does go through how reading can reduce stress, helps make us feel a little bit less lonely. It leads to a better night's sleep and reduces the risk of depression, and helps us understand difficult situations depending on where you are in your reading journey. So it's a great article. I recommend reading it. But certainly when it comes to reading, even the adult readers who maybe are struggling readers, or they're self-taught, or they're teaching themselves, or they just don't get in there and have a bit of a read. It's a really good, reading is great for taking you to a different place, I guess, and to give you that understanding from another point of view that perhaps is different from our own. And I think it's just, I'm always pushing for more reading, even at work with the younger generation. It's pushing that idea of reading because it just takes you to a different world. I love it.
Yeah, that's good. I always think of reading, people say, well, why is it so important? And I think it's education, it's entertainment, and it's escape.
Yes.
I think if you think of those as the three main things, if it's not educational, it's entertaining you and keeping you amused or engaged or whatever, but it's also an escape from the everyday. And if you join all those together, it's a great thing. So that was a very good fact sheet, and
yes, quite enjoyed reading that.
Attitudes,
So the Brisbane Writers Group having a catch up. They're actually having a catch up today, so I can't push for everyone to go there, but I hope they were all having a wonderful, fabulous time with their catch up. The Sydney Writers Meetup is happening at the end of July, so 27th of July. And RSB, the wonderful Tales by Hales, who is a member of our little team here. We've had Hayley on before, and she's absolutely marvelous. I think she's joining us for the workshop, didn't you say?
She is, and I have to also say that Hayley has become our newest subscriber. So
yay! Shout out to Hayley.
Hayley, for supporting the podcast, and of course she has the many fabulous books which we are going to feature on a little episode.
She's so good with comedy. I love her books for the comedy. It makes me laugh out loud. It's absolutely brilliant. Was that what I had? And of course, the warm winter read campaign through the library. Oh, I wanted to shout out to my BFF's daughter who entered the Write a Book in a Day competition, which was running through the schools. So I sponsored her for that. They were raising money for childhood cancer research, and it was a great concept. Basically, all of the children who volunteered to write, they were given a chapter each, where they had to spend maybe about an hour, it might have been less than an hour, to actually write their chapter. So they had their topic. They also had some keywords, a bit like the prompt, some keywords that they had to put into their chapter. And it was a goats and Christmas tale, and it was very, very funny. And I believe they'll actually be up online. I'll have to find out the exact address so that people can go and read these stories that the schools put together. So yes, that was wonderful. It was a bolt out of the blue reading her story. She's a brilliant little writer. The amazing emotional turns she takes in her writing, I just adore. So that is a big shout out. And also the Miles Franklin 2024 shortlist was announced this week. So get on to those if you like a good literary story. That they're very literary this year, actually. So the long list was announced. The short list is now been announced. So I wonder who.
So I think they get $5,000 each for the Miles Franklin, the short list.
Yeah. So congratulations to all of those writers as well.
Nice. So Canberra Libraries ACT makes me think of Emily Rayburn, who is one of our 6am Oz writers and has written Operation Sugar Plum and Enchanted Sleep, which are the retelling with the technology of, some fairy tales, which is good. But anyway, that's not about you, Emily, although I'll have to get you on and talk to you later. But Libraries ACT, got that FOMO, fear of missing out, or travel envy from seeing friends and family overseas? There's no better way to remind you of how good home really is than reading an Aussie book. I couldn't have said it better myself.
That is beautiful. I love it.
Beautiful words. So borrow straight to your local library by visiting, and you can go to Spiders and SBYDUSO, and that's how I borrow my audiobooks in the library, which is good.
Cool.
So embark on an adventure with them. Also, they're doing Lego robotics for the school holidays. So Spy Tools workshops for kids aged 6 to 12. So that's the 8th and 12th of July. So we might not get out by the 8th because that's very soon at Gungahlin, but Erindale, Friday the 12th of July at Erindale Library. Lego robotics. So get on.
Do you know what I love about Lego is that it's all about storytelling.
It is so much.
Yeah. So big shout out to the Lego users out there and the ones that love to tell a good story with their Lego builds.
Yeah, I must admit that's probably one of the only reality shows that I don't mind stumbling across.
Same. Yep, same. I love it. I love it because it's so positive.
Yes.
Really
they're not trying to, get each other or sabotage.
No, exactly. It's just absolutely marvelous and a lot of fun. So I watched that one myself.
All right, let me tell you about the State Library of Queensland. They've got applications now open for their new research fellowship, which is the Queensland Heritage register fellowship, and it supports research into the history of lesser-known sites on Queensland's Heritage Register using the State Library's collection. So you can jump on their website / which is SLQ, statelibraryqueensland.qld.gov.au / get involved, and then look up awards and fellowships. So you can get a fellowship if history is in your blood and you've got to write some historical fiction, you've got to do some investigation and research. That's the place to go. And on Tuesday the 23rd of July, they've got some keynote speakers discussing the complexities of the digital age and how to equip yourself with effective strategies and tools for fostering critical thinking in students. So get up there. Again, book online at the State Library. Now, a little bit closer to home, Geelong Libraries says, Ballerine-based with kids, check out free school holiday activities at your local libraries, and you've talked a little bit about them already. They've got so these are libraries in Drysdale, Leopold and Ocean Grove, and it's really cold down there. I know the beach is good any time of the year, but really, libraries better this time of year. So from story dogs to creating art and recipe books, there's something for all ages. So yeah, jump on the Geelong Libraries. They do a lot of great work down there as well, which is really good. And lots of young families down there. Now, you might remember we did Friday Riddle from the PMI Victorian History Library, and we couldn't get it, and it was weird. Well, I've just sort of kept an eye on it, and this one I thought, I think I almost will get what this is. Let me read you their Friday Riddle.
All right.
On a former typhus road, we have made a grassed abode, first installed in case of Russ attack, on Lawyer's Point, not looking back. For teaching boys we were acquired to ensure their martial pride. Our own carriages both have we, sharing our site with heritage trees, made to pound to pieces in our prime, now a place for kids to climb.
Ooh.
So I reckon that's one of the old cannons at the Queensland, at the Queenscliff Fort.
Oh.
Because
yes,
because they were there to, basically defend us when they thought that we would be invaded. And of course, now it's turned back towards the town and it's filled in and kids can climb all over it and all those kind of things. And they have got lots of Norfolk Island pines down there. So maybe along the foreshore, it's on a point. The lighthouse, that kind of thing. Oh, anyway, that's my guess. Watch this space, whether
let's find out. Yeah, because I have no idea.
Yes, but it feels like a fantastic place to work because they've got one other little thing that the PMI Victorian History Library Inc. on Tuesdays we wear green. Their PMI volunteer Alina suggested a colour-coded first day of the month, and their staff and volunteers have enthusiastically embraced it. So bring on yellow for August. So yeah, they are definitely worth following on Twitter, Twitter/X, whatever you like to call it, at PMI Library. So yeah, doing great work there, which is really good.
Yes, school holidays is great for writing activities and reading activities. And particularly in winter, as you say, and with cost of living crunch that we're all through. You know what? Curling up with a good book, reading a good book. Oh, it's a great way to spend a good weekend, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I won't say that I'm maxing out my book allowance lately, but anyway. Because I always try the library first, and if I can't get them on the library, then sometimes, depending how expensive they are, then I'll try them secondhand places. And otherwise,
that's a good shout out. Also, if you do want to book at your local libraries, there is places online or even just to your librarian to let them know that you want a book brought in for their current stock. And of course, you can get them shipped to different libraries in that particular library trail, so to speak.
So Goldfields are for us where, Bendigo, Castlemaine, Gisborne, there's a whole
Eastern libraries for us. Yep, exactly. And it's great. So ask them to get in books that you want to read. They will be all over that. Librarians love that.
And as soon as somebody borrows it, then there's a little token goes to the author, which is fantastic.
Exactly. So order up your books.
We love libraries. And of course, sadly, talking about retailers, we have lost Booktopia has gone into receivership
this week.
Excuse me, which was the Australia's online ordering. I did have some books ordered there, which that was not good. Because I always try to go local, and if not, we haven't got any right here locally. There's one about
And they were good
away,
for
but
Australian written
they
novels
were.
and Australian
Yeah.
authors.
They used
So
to pick
it is
those
a
up pretty
shame.
quickly. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So watch this space. You never know, somebody might be able to buy them. If I
yes.
went Tatslotto, I think that was what I was saying to the 6 a.m. Oz writers. If I won Tatslotto, I'm buying a bookshop
Yes.
and I'm selling cups of tea at the same time. Maybe
That
not
would
coffee,
be,
maybe coffee, maybe tea.
you do that, I will be up there sitting in the front of the room as I get older, reading, writing, spending my time. I
Very
will
good.
be there.
Good. All right. I think it might be a time for us to do some book spotlights.
Yes, our book spotlights. Our fantastic spotlights for this week, book spotlights for this week. So the first one we've got on the list is Power and Obsession by Catherine McCullagh. So it's an alternative history, I should say. So London, February 1941, and Amelia Shaw is about to begin a new job. But this is no ordinary job. This is not London as the world knows it. Britain has been invaded by the Germans, the capital scarred by swastika flags and blood-red victory banners, while Gestapo informers lurk around every corner. Amelia's new boss is SS General Oscar Voigt, the most powerful man in occupied Britain, a man who arrives with a reputation for ruthlessness and a single aim: to cow the population. Amelia has been recruited by a fledgling English resistance, and she realizes with terrifying rapidity that she has been catapulted into the very eye of the occupation storm. Also working in the beating heart of the occupation is Irish policeman Brendan O'Connor, General Voigt's security chief, who operates alongside the brutal SS Colonel Hans Mauser in the relentless drive to eliminate the resistance. O'Connor has been seconded from Scotland Yard, and his loyalties are ambiguous at best. Amelia soon becomes the target of his suspicions, while also attracting the watchful eye of the vicious Mauser. She is wary of her increasing proximity to her SS boss, a man of beguiling charm, and a disturbing pennant for brutal reprisals. The occupation regime has also invited the Duke of Windsor back to England, promising him the crown. The Quisling government orchestrates a campaign to sell the would-be king and his unpopular American wife to the English people, unleashing a wave of violence from the resistance which brands him a traitor. A delicate dance of politics set against the backdrop of resistance sabotage now plays out as the Duke increasingly pressures the government to schedule his coronation, while Hitler, the supreme kingmaker, prevaricates. Oh, my words today. As the violence escalates, Amelia is hunted by both the SS and the resistance, caught in the crossfire as the country threatens to implode. Ultimately, it is the ill-judged German invasion of Russia that spells doom to the occupation and precipitates a savage and bloody battle for liberation. But even the bitter post-liberation reckoning could be dwarfed by a constitutional crisis which threatens the very foundations of the country, a crisis that can only be resolved by one man, the most unlikely of them all. Sounds so fascinating.
Yes.
Wow.
And, lots of care with an alternative history that, you keep your story threads all tightly together. And of course, Canberra-based writer Catherine McCullagh trained as a teacher before embarking on a career in the Australian Army. So she knows a little bit about those kind of things. On leaving the Army, she established herself as a freelance editor specialising in military history before launching a new career, this time as a writer. Her first published works were non-fiction, beginning with Willingly Into the Fray, a centenary history of Australian Army nursing, followed by War Child, a ghost-written wartime memoir, which we know is on Australian book lovers, and Unconquered, which she co-wrote with Denny Neve and Gordon Trail. Catherine's first historical novel, Dancing with Deception, also on Australian book lovers, was published in 2017 and followed by Secrets and Showgirls. Can I just say also? I'll just give that. And the rest are also on Australian book lovers. Followed by Secrets and Showgirls in 2021. Her next novel, Love and Retribution, was released in 2022 with Resistance and Revenge, published in May 2023. So she is absolutely churning through. She's,
Yeah,
you
that's
know, on
fantastic.
track for a book a year, which is brilliant. And
Yeah.
like its predecessor, Power and Obsession is an alternative history novel, marking a shift from traditional historical fiction and into the darkly imagined world of occupied Britain. So there you go. You can find more about Catherine on her Facebook page at facebook.com/Catherine with a C, CATHERINE .McCullagh, MCCUALLAGH.948 / So there you go.
Oh, fantastic.
Mm.
So our second book spotlight
Yep.
is The Rust Red Land by Robyn Bishop, which is a
Yes.
historical fiction. So you ask too many questions, Matilda. It's not becoming in a girl. But Matilda is full of questions. It's the late 1800s in rural New South Wales, and Matilda, as the oldest daughter, is expected to cook, clean, and help Mama with her brothers and sisters. But her inquiring mind will not be stilled, nor her rebellious spirit tamed. When frustration overcomes her, she finds escape in the land she loves and in her imagination, nourished by books. In the rust-red landscape, both striking and harsh, and against the backdrop of world wars and a changing Australia, Matilda is torn between her desire for freedom and allegiance to her growing family. With their never-ending demands and crisis of poverty, drought, and illness, what Matilda really wants seems further from her reach. Will she ever see the sea, have a vocation and earn her own money, have the time to read? This sweeping novel brings to life the injustices faced by women in the 1800s and 1900s, punctuated with betrayal and loyalty, hope and despair, love and loss. Matilda and her family come alive, showing how the grip of patriarchy tried to strangle the ambitions of women, but there were women who refused to give up.
As they should.
Yes. That sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so let's look at Robyn's bio. And
Yes.
this book is from Spinifex Press, which I think I mentioned last time. It's publishing for Spinifex, publishing is a political act as well as an opportunity to engage in creative ways of producing good quality books. So lots of different books, and they're really keen to focus on feminist authors and strong women in their stories. So Robyn Bishop, who wrote The Rust Red Land, is a Melbourne-based author and playwright. Her love for theatre led her to study drama at Rusden State College. On completion of a teaching degree, she was employed as a member of the Bouverie Street Theatre in education team before working as a drama teacher at Strathmore Secondary College for more than 2 decades. Now, my nieces and nephews went there, so I'm going to ask them. And of course, one of my nieces, as you may remember, has gone into more than drama. In fact, she is a theatre producer and has done. And please vote for Total Control in the Logies. Just put the plug out there. Vote for Deb Malman, Rachel Griffiths and Rob Collins. But yes, please vote for Total Control in the Logies. It would be lovely to see that Indigenous political drama get up. We had Andrea Barton and Kirsten Hunter in a writer's room, which was kind of like a writer's room because they both had theatre experience as well. So that obviously is a bit of a theme. You know, I'm feeling very poorly. I was not a theatre person. I was a science geek. But anyway, here we go. So Robyn, where were we up to? Sorry, Robyn. So during her time at Strathmore Secondary College, she devised countless performances with students and also wrote 3 of her own plays inspired by women's stories that were formed at the Carlton Courthouse under the umbrella of La Mama. Oh, yeah, okay. Only the End was published by Currency Press in 2005, and The Show Must Go On was published by the Australian Script Centre in 2020. Her short story, The Lonely Road, appeared in the Spinifex Press anthology of feminist fiction and poetry, It's All Connected, in 2022, and her novel, The Girl in the Bath, inspired by a painting Robyn saw while attending the Melbourne Writers' Festival, was published in 2014. So The Rust Red Land is her second novel and is based on the life of her grandmother. That's brilliant.
Fantastic.
Really good.
Okay, so book 3.
Another one from Spinifex Press. Bring it on.
Yes, so The Leaves by Jacqueline Rule, so contemporary. He's in a new home, turning his bag upside down, emptying the contents into the rug in the middle of the room. It was there. He knows he packed it, the framed picture of his mum. He saw it inside his bag in the social worker's car. In the picture, she sits in her rocking chair, their chair, a small pillow tucked behind her, jutting out behind her elbow. Little Cat is on the shelf behind the chair, a row of his books, the window slightly open, sun pouring through, the photo slightly overexposed. Faith and Evelyn are close friends, neighbours, and single mothers of Luke and of Mitch, and both bear the scars of the trauma of colonisation and the stolen generations. When Faith dies unexpectedly, Luke's childhood in Sydney is severed into a before and after, and a chain of catastrophic events is unleashed that will alter the course of his life. Navigating the upheaval of a broken foster system that serves as a pipeline to poverty and incarceration in juvie, The Leaves is a bittersweet meditation on motherhood and loss, and on the power of female friendship and the role of the state in perpetuating violence. Luke's journey exposes the aftermath of colonisation as the nature of punishment, historical trauma, and healing are examined. In doing so, the novel reveals the cruelty and futility of the youth detention system and the violence of the law itself. Through the pursuit of unattainable justice for Luke, The Leaves raises larger questions about a society that is yet to take responsibility for its own historical crimes.
Wow.
That'll be a powerful one.
Yeah, absolutely. And has been won as a giveaway. So that was in part of our last newsletter. So that is winging its way. I think I posted it yesterday to the winner. And let me read Jacqueline's bio for you. Okay. Dr. Jacqueline Rule is an Australian author who holds a PhD in English from the University of Sydney, Bachelor of Arts with honours in English from Goldsmiths College at the University of London, an international program, and a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Technology in Sydney, UTS. She's the winner of the University of London's 150th anniversary prize for academic achievement in English literature. So that is pretty amazing. Congratulations, Jacqueline. And while born in South Africa, Jacqueline's lived in Sydney for many years, and she's admitted as a solicitor by the Supreme Court of New South Wales. So obviously got a lot of background in her stories. You know, they say, write what you know. Well, both these last stories we can absolutely say it's true.
Absolutely.
Jacqueline has worked in research focusing on law and literature and academic governance at the University of Technology, Sydney, as an academic tutor teaching literature at the University of Sydney, and as a fiction reader for literary journals. Her PhD thesis focused on the intersections between literature and law, narrative ethics, and interpretive practices, and the representation of historical trauma through the form of the novel. So in addition, Jacqueline spent several years working in a legal organisation supporting a specialist committee on youth detention in the criminal justice system, and The Leaves is her debut novel. Well, there you are. Congratulations, Jacqueline, for putting all of that together and delivering it in a book and getting it whizzed very quickly by the giveaway. And of course, if you want to be able to get one of our free books that some of our authors and publishers are really thrilled to give us, then you need to jump onto our newsletter. So australianbooklovers.com/booklovers, fill in the form, and I try and get it maybe once every 4 or 6 weeks, depends how many books I have and how busy I am. I try and get it out there. We try and give away 2 or 3 books at a time. And I'll just say I've got an absolute stack up there at the moment. So, thank you to everybody who's jumped on and done that for us. I think we've got one more.
Yes.
This one, wow.
Corpus in Extremis. What a title. A memoir by Loretta Smith. As long as we stand in light, there is always shadow, always something to challenge truth, justice, knowledge, physical and mental well-being. As humans, we are at once strong yet vulnerable, immutable and forever changing. To an observer, I am simply a sleeping patient in a hospital bed in recovery, one of rows and rows and rooms full of us. But what small miracles are occurring? How do we right ourselves, our physical bodies, and bring the rest, psyche, soul, ether, into alignment? Protection is required lest one surfaces with fault lines. Loretta Smith is renowned as the best-selling author of A Spanner in the Works, a biography of Alice Anderson, the Garage Girl. Now in Corpus in Extremis, Loretta shares the details of her own fascinating and incredible life, a life in which she has had to negotiate the pain, physical restrictions, and medical interventions of osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as brittle bone disease. She shows that despite being a patient for a lifetime, she has survived and even thrived with an imaginative brain more agile than her body. You'll be charmed, challenged, and will laugh out loud at her wit and ingenuity as she embarks on travel, engages in work, grapples with family and relationships, and takes up creative endeavours, all while enduring continuous medical treatments. Loretta explores what it is to reside in a body pushed to the extreme, what it is to be human, to be fractured, to be whole, and to heal. She lucidly argues that nobody escapes being disabled, disenfranchised, or othered in any way or another. So that sounds intense.
Yeah,
and
that
amazing.
I really like that
Yeah.
arguing that nobody escapes being disabled, disenfranchised, or othered in one
Mm,
way or another. Yeah,
one way
for
or another.
sure. Yeah. So Loretta's bio. Loretta
Yes.
Smith is a writer of true stories, a committed feminist and environmental activist. She holds a Bachelor of Education in Creative Arts and a graduate certificate in teaching English as a foreign or other language, TESOL, as well as being an experienced life coach. Loretta's career has spanned teaching, community theatre, there we go, case management, and various roles in the disability, mental health, and aged care sectors. Aside from trying to save the planet from human destruction and getting through the pile of books on her bedside table, Loretta likes to muck around on her piano, making up songs people will never hear. Good on you, Loretta. I have a little tinker myself, and no one's ever hearing those. This is the result of playing in a band once and performing in a few a cappella groups when she wrote and arranged comparatively short ditties. Nowadays, she co-hosts the weekly radio program Take Me to Your Reader on Joy 94.9 with her writing group, The Cartridge Family. I love that. Where they interview authors of all stripes and discuss all things writerly. So good on you for putting everything out there, Loretta.
Yes.
Her best-selling biography, A Spanner in the Works, The Extraordinary Story of Alice Anderson and Australia's First All-Girl Garage, Hachette 2019, inspired the play Garage Girls, which performed at La Mama Theatre in 2023 to a sellout audience, and the book has also been optioned for a TV series. Loretta's go on.
Oh, I was just going to say that's very cool.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
And let me just say that there is an all-girl garage at Riddle's Creek, so good on you ladies. The garage owner who'd been there forever, only had daughters, they took over the business. They're doing a great job. So Loretta's memoir, Corpus in Extremis, is based on, but not limited to, living with the rare genetic bone condition osteogenesis imperfecta, and explores her incredible backstory to researching and writing A Spanner in the Works. And it does have the most beautiful cover, which I'll put up. You'll see it on, if you're watching us rather than just listening to us. But otherwise, Google Corpus in Extremis and have a little look. And if you want a copy, she's in the next giveaway. So jump on in. And you'll see that in the newsletter. So lots of ways to see it. What a great lot of books. And, I feel like, I was tossing it whether to add another one because we're getting so many books. So, but anyway, we'll just keep churning because sometimes we have quiet times. But yes, let's keep going. That is Book
That's
Spotlight.
amazing. Fantastic.
I think it's time for an interview. What do you reckon?
Yes. So the amazing Nadine Abrahams, author of Stars Fallen series, The Primal Heartbeat, and Archie's Ascent, and also the author of prequel Dane. So I am so thrilled to have this interview with Nadine. We had a great chat. We could have talked a lot longer, I'm sure. So do enjoy. Book lovers, I am absolutely delighted to have with me today Nadine Abrahams, author of the Stars Fallen series, The Primal Heartbeat, and Archie's Ascent. Also, author of Dane and Muntier, which we hopefully will get a chance to talk about, and Ad Astra, I should say. Nadine, hello. So good to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to love chatting to you.
Fantastic. Now I'm coming to you, listeners and watchers, from my usual place, Wurundjeri Wurrung country in Victoria. Where are you today, Nadine?
I'm on Ghana country in Adelaide, South Australia.
Wonderful. And we were just talking off camera about our lovely co-host, who used to be our co-host, Darren, who was also from South Australia. So it's actually good to get back around the country. We've had a few Melbourne people of late, so this is great. Now, Nadine, you write romantasy, which is quite big right now.
It's very big, and it's a very hard genre to get big in.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's become popular because of wonderful authors like Sarah J. Maas and the Akatar series, and we've got things like Onyx Storm coming out. Yeah, and they've blown up, and I believe it just gives people an escape.
Yes. Yeah. And I think fantasy is really taking off in the media and in movies and film and TV and all those. And I was a big fantasy fan when I was younger. Still am. Everything fantasy that I can get my hands on, I will. Same with a bit of science fiction.
I'm an avid fantasy reader. I started off in fantasy before I entered the romantasy field. My books are romantasy, but they're not. Yeah, it's not the main plot of it. It has elements of romance rather than it being the whole thing of the fantasy genre.
Wonderful. Well, look, let me just read a bit of your bio to tell our listeners and watchers a little bit about you. So Nadine has been an avid reader and writer since her early childhood, from publishing poems to creating her first novel at 13, The Primal Heartbeat, and publishing it in her early adulthood. The Primal Heartbeat has since been edited and updated. Nadine is an avid gamer and role player, as well as creator of fiction and fantasy novels. She also loves archery and nature, which I can't wait to talk about. After dealing with adversity and overcoming it, Nadine writes books that show even powerful characters are inherently flawed, that these weaknesses can often become our strengths as long as we remain true to ourselves. Nadine's writing reflects on the dark side of humanity, as well as the good side. And even though we think we are worthless, we can change our destiny, just as her memorable characters do. Nadine, you also write under the surname Durwood for juvenile fiction, is that right?
That is correct.
Oh, fantastic. Well, look, speaking of juvenile fiction, I understand you wrote The Primal Heartbeat when you were 13,
yes,
or 12. What was your journey to publishing this book?
It's a long journey. So these characters came into my mind when I was being bullied at school, and Archie is a representation of everything I would have liked to have been as a young person, because despite being bullied, she's herself. She stands up for herself and never loses her way. Then I sort of wrote it, and my best friend said, you know what, just publish it for others, a small group of friends to read. So we did that with a local printer, and then my husband kind of pushed me onto doing it about last year, and I sent it off to an editor, and I haven't looked back.
That's absolutely amazing. So when you say you published it back then, what sort of printing qualities were we talking about? So
before KDP, we had to go and pay thousands just to have it printed up. There was no access to editing without paying like thousands and thousands of dollars, and there was no real cover artist that you could just easily access because the internet was very, very young.
Yep.
And self-publishing wasn't really a thing.
Yes.
So I published in 2004 as a self-publisher, and I assume I'm probably one of the earlier ones.
So with your publishing journey, so how did you find that with the early days compared to now? With
it's a breeze now. The problem is there's a lot more competition too now. So while it was harder to get published, there was more, people found it more of a novelty. There wasn't a lot of self-published books out there. So they're like, oh, cool, I'll read this. But now you're competing with all the, big self-published authors, and good luck to them.
Yes. Yes, but certainly ebooks and being able to digitally download books these days make that a lot easier as well. And
almost a lot of writers can get the stuff out there. So for ease of access, it is better nowadays.
Well, with fantasy in particular, and I know I get that a little bit with the sci-fi as well, that there is a veracity of readers, that you have readers who they won't just read one one book or two books in a genre, they will read as much as
Yes,
possible.
correct. And I'm one of those readers too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because I started out as a reader before I was a writer.
So what inspired you to write The Primal Heartbeat?
I don't know. It just came to me one day, and I've always written. I've always read. I was reading books beyond my age from a very young age. My mum used to read to us all the time.
Oh, that's great.
My dad is a huge Terry Brooks fan, and I started out with stories like The Sword of Shannara and The Wish Songs of Shannara, and I didn't look back from there.
Yep. I remember reading those ones in high school too. I absolutely love a series. Love a series that you can get as much of your hands on as possible.
Yes.
So you write fantasy, elves, druids, mages, and in your bio you mention a love of gaming and role playing and archery. Tell me more about that. How have these interests fed into, or was it the other way around? Did your writing of the story feed into these interests?
I wrote the book when I was 13, but I didn't start playing role-playing games till I was 18. And I didn't have a lot of money as a teenager. I moved out of home when I was 18, and me and my friends would get together and play Dungeons and Dragons. And I put my writing to the side because I was working and doing all other things, but my dungeon master skills came out. I'd write epic campaigns for my friends. So that storytelling kind of came across when I rewrote The Primal Heartbeat. They kind of mixed into it in a sense. It just gave me skills that I wouldn't necessarily have. Yeah.
I've recently been getting into Dungeons and Dragons myself through just seeing the interest online and watching some campaigns online and fallen into that DM category just to try and convince my partner to play.
Nice.
So I absolutely can see how that the storytelling comes through with devising those campaigns. And
I've always been a storyteller. I've always
been
a storyteller. The games me and my sisters and brothers used to play, I would make up these epic fantasies and we would actually act them out.
Oh, fantastic. Did you do the dress ups as well?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
That's absolutely brilliant. So I'll read a little bit of the blurb from The Primal Heartbeat. Now there is a sequel, which we'll talk about a little bit as well, but I just want to give you a little bit of a taste, and hopefully Nadine, you will read us a little bit from one of your books a little bit later in the episode. Lovely. So let me read a blurb for The Primal Heartbeat. So, born into a world where humanity has been corrupted by evil, can one tribal girl fulfill a destiny and defeat a dark goddess? Archie's peace is fragile, trying to carve out an existence in a land torn by strife and famine. Her destiny has made her the target of terrible creatures. And as her divine nemesis's powers grow ever stronger, the young mage knows she must awaken her own otherworldly heritage if she wants to survive. Enduring endless hardships with the aid from her soulmate, Archie bravely battles the forces attempting to tear them apart. But being fated to save the world and actually doing it are two very different things. I love the end of that last sentence. Brilliant. So what went into, with your plotting, so you were 12, how did you go with plotting out this story?
I didn't. I just I would have days where me and my best friend, who's a great influence to me, she would write and I would write. We would sit down at lunchtime and we'd pull out the writing pads and we'd just write chapters upon chapters. And it wasn't until I was in adulthood that I kind of pieced them together, put them in a plot. So when I was about 16 or 17, I started merging them into a book.
Fantastic.
But then I lost the paperwork.
No.
But I remembered about 80% of it.
Oh, thank
so
goodness.
I was able to type up the majority and make a few changes, which were better. But my best friend, because I used to read to her and she used to read to me, could actually fill in a few of the details.
Oh,
and I'll be like, do you remember this part here? She goes, yeah, you did do that. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you'd consider yourself more of a pantser than a plotter?
I was a pantser back then. Now I'm kind of half pantser, half plotter.
Oh, so why do you think that's changed?
I matured. I realized that sometimes you have to cut things out of your book and sometimes you have to go back and put extra plot in. I would put that towards my amazing editor.
Mhm.
She is incredible. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention her name here.
Absolutely, go for it.
Well, her name's Jen Zabaniskas, and she's from Red Ink Creative. If you're looking for a editor in fantasy, I would recommend her.
Fantastic. So tell me more about with your editing. What were some of the issues that came up? Not bad issues, but the things that maybe you repeat through your stories that you needed to go back and go.
More like plot timing. Like
Mhm.
I had to do more research into the time because
Okay.
I've got sort of alternative plot lines to my story.
Okay.
So that more like I'd repeat phrases definitely, and
Mhm.
a lot of authors will have the same word for the same situation, like staring, looking.
Yep.
I'd have 68 looks instead of glances, and so my editor's also a book coach, a writer coach, so
Okay.
she kind of like gave me hints and information to kind of like, you do this and this is
Mhm.
your common thing, and I said, oh, she goes, it's not a bad thing, all writers do it.
Oh, absolutely. I've got some absolute shockers that I will repeat. And I am a fan of the M dash used in every grammatical situation.
Oh, I like my M dashes too. I like ellipses too.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. A good fan of the ellipses.
Yeah.
I think that go.
Yeah, that they are fun to use.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that comes from I have a little bit of a theatre background, and so very dialogue heavy. So I find ellipses and M dashes for my pauses come through all the time.
Nice. My stories are dialogue driven, the character
Excellent.
driven.
Okay.
So you learn, a lot of people sort of like, oh, the book's too fast or we don't get enough information at the front. That's because Aki's a young child and you learn through her eyes as you go. You're literally a blank slate in book one.
That's fantastic. That's really interesting. Do you think that came through because you started writing it when you were so young?
Yes, because there's a huge difference between book two and book one. It's the emphasis is that the writing's changed to reflect the age of the characters.
Okay, so would you pitch book one at more of a younger audience?
My teen said yes.
Okay.
So yes, it could be, but because it's got strong themes, I wouldn't. So yeah. It's written in an easier style to read, but the themes wouldn't be for younger people.
Okay. Yep. So you write about characters who are inherently flawed. Tell me more about that.
Well, nobody's perfect. I don't use the word perfect. I use the word mainstream. The majority of people do this. But I'm very unique myself. I would be considered quirky or a bit unusual. We all make mistakes, and you know what, we've got to learn from them. So I'm a big believer, everyone can make this a fantastic character with no flaws, but it's not relatable.
Yep.
I can't relate to that, so I make my characters relatable. My characters go through depression, hyperactivity. Arky's very hyperactive.
Didn't they describe us as enthusiastic at school?
Yes, definitely. She's got a weird sense of humor. She's quirky, but
love it.
My characters make mistakes, and because they're very young, they start out as young. They have to learn and grow, just like the teenagers do, just as adults. And even when they're in book two and book three, they still make mistakes and learn. Everybody is flawed, but they turn them into their strengths.
That's great. And actually, speaking of that, so weakness can often become our strengths as long as we remain true to ourselves.
Exactly. You could be stubborn, and if it's used in the wrong situation, it could affect you and others. But if you're stubborn to protect someone, it can benefit everyone. It depends how you use these flaws and how you evolve as a person.
And how you learn, I guess.
Definitely. I'm a big believer in self-improvement first before others.
Yeah. So what's the best response you've had to your writing?
That the characters are relatable, that it's definitely niche. It's whereas it's fast-paced, the writing is unusual. I used to think that was a bad thing, but it really only I've got a small fan base, but it's relatable to them. That's
great. Yeah, I often get very similar comments in the sense that it feels like it moves very fast. And I do think that is the dialogue heaviness part of it.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, dropped something. But yeah, I find that that perhaps it's the way people have changed throughout the years. We don't really see as many descriptive, heavy 4-page Tolkien describing a mountaintop descriptions anymore in text. I think readers, particularly younger readers, but really just readers all over, are looking to jump straight in.
Exactly. Whereas I've been someone once said in passing, condensed Tolkien is how I write.
Oh, that's a great compliment. I would have that one plastered up on your website. No.
Yeah. So it would be good as a film because of the dialogue heavy and the enrichment, but it's often harder for people who don't read epic fantasy to get into it. But those who understand epic fantasy can understand it because it's sort of poetic, but it's also epic fantasy.
Well, you mentioned that you write poetry, or you did write poetry. Do you still do it?
I do. It's in my book. So the characters will have songs, but it's some of my poems.
Wonderful. Oh, that's absolutely marvelous.
Yes.
Poems that you wrote back then, or
yes,
that you
definitely.
Now?
I've added some new ones to book 2 and 3, but book 1 has the original poems I started writing when I was very young.
Oh, fantastic! What would you tell your younger self through all the changes in the editing and the differences in publishing now?
To not be afraid, to learn. When I met Bryce Courtney, I handed him a book and he had a look at it, and I was told that to go, and it needs a lot of editing, and most people books don't see the light of day. I, being young and I thought that was not a compliment. But I realize now every writer needs an editor. It's inevitable. And all it meant was you've got a great start. You just got to get it out there and edit it.
Yes.
So it was a compliment.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That would be marvelous.
But I put it aside because of that. And I didn't write for 19 more years.
Now, that's interesting. So do you think it was because of that hit to the younger ego?
No,
it was my lack of
in the way. Life got in the way, but my lack of self-confidence.
Okay.
I didn't believe I was good enough.
So how did that change?
My husband, he's been pushing me for the last year and a half, and he reads, but he struggles with reading. But he took a look at my book and he started reading. He goes, "This is really good." He goes, "What harm could happen if you sent it off to an editor?" So I emailed an editor from a friend who was recommended, and they sent it to their fantasy editor, and she said, "Yeah, you've got something here. You just need, a bit of a push." And my confidence has grown. I'm actually starting to believe I'm a good writer, and comments from those who are reading it have bolstered my ability that I want to write for others.
Excellent. Well, what I find really interesting is these days, because Dungeons and Dragons has become more mainstream and it's popped up in TV shows and movies, and there is a lot online, a lot of content online. I find that the fantasy, the high fantasy, so your elves and your mages and your magicians and that sort of thing, are really coming more into the mainstream with reading, with storytelling.
Definitely.
Yeah. Are you finding a difference in your readership?
No, not really, because I tend to have the same people coming back and again. It's more, not so much younger, sort of like 25 to 30-year-olds are really enjoying my books because it's not written, it's not disregarding young people. Young people can read it, but it's not written in a younger style. It's more complicated. It's quite complex to understand.
Those adult themes.
And my characters aren't mainstream. My elves and my dwarves aren't like elves and dwarves that you see in Dungeons and Dragons. They're totally unique.
Interesting.
So yeah. So I have some Celtic heritage, and I was inspired by that, but haven't used anything from those stories. I might have used some names like Dane and a couple of Celtic names, but everything gave me an inspiration to rewrite and write. But all my characters and monsters, apart 98%, are my own creations.
Okay, so all right. Well, then, how much of research did go into your stories? I mean, certainly when you were writing so young, I imagine a bit like I wrote my first novel when I was 17. So I feel you. Well, I didn't get it published like you for 20 years. But yeah, did something similar. And I know back then I wasn't heavy into research. So how much research went into the beginning of your novel to when you were making changes?
I would have to attribute this to my father. My dad loves history,
Mhm.
and he would often talk about history and Roman periods and all sorts of things. And it gave me a love of history. So I was not just reading fantasy, I was reading encyclopedias and research books. So when I started writing, I already had a lot of that knowledge in my background.
That's great.
And anything I struggled with or couldn't research with, I could say to my dad, hey, what happened here? And he could give me, a lot of background. Also, I used to watch that Horrible Histories, and that was helpful too.
Isn't that fantastic? Yep. I adore that show. I watch it on reruns now just Love because it's wonderful to have on in the background to just laugh at.
Yeah, but I did a lot of reading for my research, and it just came across in my writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's your writing day like now? What do you have a routine that you like to use as a writer?
No. I can write about 50,000 words in about less than 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
My novel 2 and 3, I wrote in 4 months together, and it just comes to me, and I write when I feel like it. I'm a mood writer.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you use music as well?
No, I don't. I hyper focus. I'll write 4 or 5 hours without stopping. Sometimes I'll listen to music, but most times I just like quiet, and I usually do it when the kids are at school.
I think that's kind of the only way, really. Yep. It's that constant distraction that drives you a bit batty. What about editing? How do you focus on your editing as opposed to writing?
Well, I'll read it. I'll actually download it onto my e-reader, and I'll pretend I'm just reading it. And I'll just read it as if I know nothing about it. And anything that pops up, I'll comment, and I'll leave a point, and I'll put that comment in so that when I send it off to my editor, we can discuss it. And we'll work through, because she's a developmental educator together, and we'll work through it together, and she'll give me advice and what's more commercialized, and what makes sense and stuff like that. And then she'll edit, and then I'll re-edit, and then she'll do another line so that when it comes out, it's ready to go off to the proofreader.
Oh, fantastic. So where do you write? Do you have a special writing room?
I have a laptop on a sewing desk in my bedroom.
Oh. So everyone's locked out of the room while you're working?
No, I would never do that. I write when my kids aren't here, or I'll write late at night because I'm a night owl. But my kids are always welcome to come in when I'm writing, because they come before me, my writing. So, yeah.
No, and you read a lot to them?
I do. They are. My daughter is got disabilities, my teen girl, and she used to dislike reading until I wrote a book for her.
Oh, tell me more.
Ad Astra.
Interesting. I was wanting to ask you about Ad Astra. So tell me a bit more about that one.
So I started that as a laugh, because my daughter was only about 1 at the time. So I wrote this silly book, and it's about a store owner, and he has quirky goods, and you go in to solve a problem, which he tells you should solve it by yourself before resorting to magic. And they buy this item, and they give up something.
Oh.
Like it might be their hair or something, but it has a funny consequences because they didn't learn from it. And he warns them. He's like, I don't do this. Don't do this.
Interesting. So how did your daughter respond to that?
So when I put it aside, and I did a self-publish in 2007, I believe, or 2008. And then I didn't rework it until a couple of years ago when she was struggling, and I got it illustrated. And she read it and loved it, and we read it together. And one of the characters is actually based on her.
Oh, fantastic.
So she felt like she was in this story, so she needed to read it. So she started reading it, and her reading and writing improved. And now she actually reads. She went on to read Goosebumps and other things.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it really kick-started that interest.
Yes.
That's excellent.
And my latest kids book, The Lord of the Chooks, is a book for kids with special needs, because I've got 2 of them with special needs.
When is that out? Is it
coming out? It's already out.
Oh, wonderful.
It's illustrated by Lucy Love, and it has a wonderful story based on my children going to collect the eggs and imagining a journey on the way there.
Oh, wow.
And then it's full of activities so that parents can read, and their children who might be hyperactive, because I've got a daughter that's a bit hyperactive, while she colors or does the puzzles, parents can read the story.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Tell me, you mentioned that you've got 3 books in the series, but I understand one of those books in your series, your Fallen
Stars Fallen.
Stars Fallen, is a prequel or written and set long before the events of book 1 and 2. Tell me about that.
Yes, so 2 of the characters are the parents of one of the male leads, and a lot of people liked they wanted to know about their backstory. So, I thought, I'm just going to write a story about their backstory. I'm not going to publish it. And then it formed into this whole epic book. And I sent it off to my editor, and we're like, we can't add this to the trilogy because it's Stars Fallen is going to be a trilogy.
Oh, is it?
Yes. So book 3 should be out next year.
Exciting.
And so we were like, you know what? The world is called Veltara, which means alternative Earth. And so we'll put it in the Tales of Veltara series so that if I come up with any more stories of any sub-characters, we can just put them in this new series.
Oh, what a great idea. So are you planning some more of the prequels as well as?
Yes, I am. I've probably got about 3 or 4 more books to go into the Tales of Veltara series.
Wow, that's excellent. Set at the same time?
No, they're all standalones. So it could be 20 years before, 100 years before, or anything like that. So, and I actually advertised them as standalones. So yes.
So, and I find this. I've got a series as well as a couple of current books which I designed as part of a series and just haven't got a chance to write more of them. But with why the standalones compared to the series? Is it that the series writing can be a little bit tricky?
No, because it follows the 2 main characters and their story, and because Telluanaki is actually means stars fallen, so it's her journey to her final peace. She finds her peace in the end. There will be a happy ever after, but it takes a long time to get there. Yeah. That's what epic fantasy is all about, though.
Absolutely. No, that's so true. So true. So how did you go with? So you wrote book 1 when you were 12. When did you write book 2?
Last year.
So how did you find that?
I took off from where I started and it just flowed.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Do you think that's because you had recently reworked book 1, or did you only rework book 1 when you started writing book 2?
No, I think it's because I reworked book 1. Yeah, I think I got some inspiration. I knew what I wanted for book 2. Book 3 was kind of let's wing it. So yeah, that was fun to write. Book 2 was a bit more complicated because I was like, I have to go back and read this and write that, and I have to get all the characters right. I still wrote it fairly quickly, but the editing was a lot longer for book 2. Because we had to make sure all the characters linked up, all the time plots linked up, and everything. My editor was a pro. She was going back and going, you've actually missed this time plot here. You've actually got to put it here. So editing book 2 wasn't as fun, but it was worth it.
It's a lot of cross-referencing, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And my editor gave me a whole cheat list of all the things. She actually wrote down all the things, and now I've got another book about another 40 pages with all my world, and I've created my own language for it.
Oh, wow. So So how did you go about that?
Well, I just thought, you know what? Everyone uses Latin or, they're kind of set with a Celtic basis, and I didn't want to take Gaelic and use that. So I'm like, I need language for spells. So I'll start writing a language for spells. And I'm like, I need adjoining words. and then I need names for animals and stuff. And then it ended up with 5 pages of words.
Oh, fantastic. Do you speak it?
I'm going to start learning it. But yeah, I should, but it's more like it's just like when they're talking in the main character will talk in Elvish to his love interest or something like that, or they'll drop phrases in Elvish. It's not used throughout all the book.
Yep. So because you've self-published these books, I know through going through some self-publishing myself, there's a lot of promotion that falls on the author these days. So designing your promos and talking about your books. And I've seen you've got TikTok and you've got some YouTube promos. Do you do all of those yourself?
Yes, I do.
I have to admit, I did watch one of them, and singing on one of them, which was credited at the end to yourself. It was absolutely stunning.
Thank you. I don't consider myself a great singer, but
Oh, you need to do more of that in your
I had a
promotion.
cold at the time when I was doing
No,
it.
really?
Yeah, I had a bad cold at the time. I think I had COVID at the time.
Oh, wow. Well, I
So-
tell you, it sounds fabulous.
Thank you. And the song I actually wrote the lyrics for. So that's one of the things from book one. And
Is that a bit from your poetry?
Yes, yes. I wrote that. That was one of the things I wrote first when I was writing book one.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic. And it gave me that real fantasy feel.
Oh, I'm glad. That was the intention. And the person who came up with the music, he did really good.
Oh. Well, so I know your husband prompted you. I know your friend, your editing friend has become good friends with you. Who would you consider outside of those two to be the most influential in regard to your stories?
That's easy. My brother Alex.
Okay.
My sister Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend of over 30 years would have be Amy.
And how did they inspire you?
Well, she's a fellow writer herself. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love to read her stuff, but she won't get it out there. But you know, not everybody does. People write for the love of it. She writes for the love of it, and she's been telling me to be myself. I haven't been myself all the way through my writing, and I recently sent something I'm working on to my editor, and I'm like, both her and my bestie said, be yourself, because I see snippets of something happening here, some way you describe things as poetic, but it's not quite 100%. I'm like, okay, I'm very tired. I'll send you this paragraph. And my editor just goes, whoa. And my best friend goes, whoa. So I'm working on a new book that I intend to not self-publish.
Oh, so are you planning to query that?
Yes, I will be.
Fantastic.
I think this is something else. Whereas the trilogy that I wrote for Stars Fallen was a love of mine. It was a dream to be fulfilled. And I did query that one and I got some offers, but I didn't want to end up changing any of it. So that was a childhood dream I needed to fulfill. But any more works in progress is different.
Okay. Oh, I am very intrigued as to where this goes in the future.
Yes, this is even I'm sitting here going, I can't self-publish this one. I have to query this one.
That's great. So then you'll be going through that whole new process of
it will be different.
and
I'm not rushed for this one. I just sit back and I'm just going to be like, I'm going to give it the 2-3 years to query. I'm not in a rush to get this one out there.
So that's interesting. So your first novel, which you wrote when you were younger, that youthful desire to just get it out there. I want everyone to read it. I don't have the time. I need to get it out. But now you've got that interest of slowing down and taking your time with it. Why do you think that's changed?
I think it's more the fact because I'd already published The Primal Heartbeat. I'd already put it out into the world. I was like, I don't want it changed in any way. And I'm going to continue with, I set a goal. It had to be a particular way. And if I'd sent it off to publishers, I could have changed it. And I never wanted to do that. My tale was set in stone. So I'm stubborn. So I decided, and my husband decided, that we would keep it the same. So one of the main characters is based on him. I won't say which one. And one of the main characters is based around my life. So a lot of authors put themselves in a character, but there's a little snippet at the end of book 3 that tells you a little bit of information.
Well, and when is book 3 looking to be coming out?
We're hoping December, but it might be January or February.
Oh, wonderful. Well, definitely let us know so we can pop some details up on the website. So what's the most useful writing advice that you've ever been given?
Be yourself. Get it out onto the page and don't worry about how it sounds. Write it out and save it, because you can always go back and change it. You can't start from nothing.
Yep, that is fantastic. I know we've talked about what advice you'd give yourself if you could, but what advice would you give to other authors out there, perhaps starting the journey?
Have patience. It's a long journey. I was in a rush when I was very young. I didn't slow down because I'm a bit hyperactive and a bit insistent. But breathe. It's not going anywhere. Take time for yourself. Don't get so caught up in writing that you forget to live. Set yourself a bit of time each day or every second day to write. And anything that comes into your mind that you know is part of your story, write it down and put it somewhere safe in your desk drawer and come back to it. We're looking at it fresh eyes gives you a whole new perspective.
Oh, that's great advice. That's absolutely fantastic. So I guess sorry, I had a question. It was right in my head. Oh, book covers. What was your inspiration for your book covers?
My characters.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it's a scene from part of the book?
Yes, it is. All my covers reflect scenes from within the books. And I like modern day covers, but I grew up in the era where characters were always on the front page. Like in the Terry Brooks always has his characters on the front page. I know it's not done now. A lot of people don't like characters on the main page, but this is my love series, and it's a tribute to the 80s epic characters on the pages.
I love that. And I like to have a bit of a hint as to what I need to imagine. It's I
do
know,
too.
Yeah. It's just kind of good to get that feeling.
And it's good for advertising too, because I can say my character looks like this.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So are there any secrets hidden in your writing?
No, I don't think so. There are things about being yourself, staying strong to yourself, but there's no hidden plot points yet. But who's to say that won't happen?
Who's to say it won't happen? That's right. Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Nadine. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Tell me, where can listeners and readers find you online?
They can find me on Instagram under Nadine Abrahams author, on my Stars Fallen page on Facebook, but I'm more approachable on Instagram because I like Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah, so and I will anyone who chats to me, I will chat back to you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It might not be straight away, but I'm humbled by my readers. Dane had 1,700 downloads on the Kindle Stuff Your Kindle Day.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you get many comments back from your readers?
I do. I have not heaps, but the ones who really enjoy it do reach out to me, and I'm like, thank you for reading it. I'm humbled by it, and they're like, no, thank you for giving me this chance to read. I'm like, cool.
That's marvelous. So any final words for potential readers or writers?
If you like epic fantasy and condensed Tolkien, you'd love my books.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. Oh, fantastic. Now, look, I'd love for you to read a little bit from one of your stories if you've got some time for us today.
Sure, I can do that. I'm not very good speaker for my books, but I will give it a shot.
All right, go for it.
I'll just bring it up.
Yep.
Here we go. I'll read you the first chapter of Dane.
Ooh.
The air reverberated with a woman's scream. The young man shivered and leapt from the tall tree he was resting on. As he fell, a set of emerald dragonflies, almost the size of his person, sprouted from his back. He fluttered his wings and began to glide, heading towards the scream. The air was slick with moisture from the fog that lay heavily in the air. As he swept past the ancient trees, a herd of deer leapt past. Their thunderous hoofbeats reached his pointed ears. He covered his ears at the intrusion, the sound almost deafening to an elven prince's exceptional hearing. As his feet touched the dew-tipped grass, he trod softly and quickened his pace, hiding in the shadows as if he was just another creature of Dee, the Earth Mother. The sound of sobbing startled him, and he hurried towards the sounds of melancholy. I wonder if the cries are from pain brought about by the hands of mankind. Humankind had begun to thrive, their birth numbers rising as they became more intelligent and acquired more technology. This is the 13th time they have emerged from the primordial ooze. I wonder if they will destroy themselves yet again. 13,000 years ago, elves and dwarfs had taken pity on humankind and aided them in hopes the species would evolve and thrive. Every time humankind got access to knowledge and technology, they lay waste to each other through acts of cruelty and war in a bid for power. Dane was startled from his thoughts as the dawn's early morning light struck the dew-laden leaves and shimmered in rainbow hues. A squirrel ran past, its mouth overflowing with nuts, and several birds called to each other in the treetops. He peeked around a tree and saw two human males. One was laughing and ran his hands down a young woman's face. Her hands were tied, the ropes rubbing her wrists, and she struggled as the rogue hauled her back against his chest. Tendrils of white magic began to weave themselves around the woman's hands. Dane blinked a few times in surprise, wondering where the magic came from before turning his attention to the vagabonds. They both had blackened eyes, split lips, and their noses were bruised and dented like they had been broken recently. I'll leave it there.
Oh, that's absolutely marvelous. I'm like, no, keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for reading some of that and for all of your time today with chatting to me and Australian book lovers.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. And good luck with all your books yourself.
Thank you very much. All right. We will talk soon, I'm sure.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, listeners, for listening.
So thank you, Nadine and Laurie, for giving us such a great chat and so many things. A little bit of D&D happening in there.
Yes. I love
like I had to
that.
get
I love
that
to
out.
try and slide that in there since I'm learning all things D&D at the moment with world
Yes.
building and
Yes.
creating characters, which is,
Yes.
I hope, helping
Yeah.
my writing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
It
guess.
must surely, yeah. And,
I
and
hope so.
writing epic campaigns, and she's a game player and she's an
Yeah.
archer, and wrote her first novel at 13. I think
I
that
know.
is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a little thrill for you here. Maybe a thrill, maybe not.
Tell me.
No, now I can't
No?
find it.
No?
Oh, no, here it is.
Oh.
Just under my signed copy of.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. All right. So this was the book that I wrote when I was about probably 15 or something. I was in high school. It's called
That's
The Interrupted Journey. And it's
That's
written
fantastic.
on pink typing paper because we didn't have computers in those days.
Yep. I actually have some typewritten choose your own adventure stories that I wrote with some of my friends at school.
Look at that. See, that's
Oh,
the typing.
marvelous. All right,
So here we
next time we chat, I'm going to go and grab mine because they're in the other room.
Beautiful. And it is just hilarious because the grammar is just dreadful.
It's great. And like Whitefire, my lovely sci-fi, which I have hiding right in the corner. I don't know why I'm hiding it there.
Yeah.
My lovely Whitefire, that was written when I was 17. So not quite 13, but certainly on the way. So I understand that urge when we're younger writers. We love reading, and there's just an urge to write your own and have people read them. So it was great chatting with Nadine. We really had a lot in common there.
That's good.
It was a very fun chat. But I love that she writes about powerful characters inherently flawed.
Yeah.
It's really, that's where you get the most interesting characters, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like a character-driven story more than the action-driven, and I like that she's got dialogue and character-driven, very relatable, quirky. They make mistakes, and I love actually that she writes only when she's in the mood.
Yes.
Yeah, and she just smash out, and for a while she just pours out of her, and then she just stops and does something else.
Yep, I love that because that is the complete opposite to how I write, where I have my trip home on the train, so I've got a solid hour to just sit there and write. So it's writing when the mood strikes. That would be a thing. Yeah,
that would be a joy. Yeah. I think if we could, all of us could give up a job, and if writing was a way to have a living, I don't want to be $1 million. If you could survive on it, that's it, then that would be good. Yeah.
Yes.
No. And look, series versus standalone, she's a singer as well, but her advice to be yourself and have patience, I think that is, it's very good.
And jump online and have a look at her book promo for these books, because she does sing on it, and it is extraordinary. I really, I was really taken in by that. So
very good. That's definitely something I'm going to have a look at that. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nadine Abrahams.
Yes.
And yeah, you will find her books on the fantasy page. And we did have a little chat about fantasy versus romantic fantasy
Yes.
and all of those kind of
And
things. And I spotted a blog on the Indie Author magazine called Living the Romantasy Genre Tropes in Romantic Fantasy. So, you know, a bit of a mouthful there. But I did like that it said there is a little bit of a difference, as Nadine was pointing out. So both genres tend to be written for women readers and feature romantic relationships, which can be heterosexual, LGBT plus, or polyamorous. They run the gamut in terms of heat level, from no hint of sexual desire, even in the character's thoughts, all the way to explicit sex scenes with 4-letter anatomical terms, whichever you choose. As with any romance, advisable to signal the heat level to readers through marketing material, including covers and blurbs. And that's good advice for any author, really. So this person, whose name is Claire Sager, this is April 2022, she suggests that romantic fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy. Fantasy romance is a subgenre of romance. And some readers shelve it as fan rom. I haven't heard of that one, so there you go.
I hadn't heard of that one. Interesting.
So yes, any books, of course, in the romance have to end with a happily ever after or happily for now. But romantic fantasy, on the other hand, follows fantasy rules and expectations. And some readers shelve these as rom fan. It's longer. It's longer than 100,000 words are common, and those beyond 200,000 words are still within normal parameters. So 50,000 word novels also exist. They feature fantastical elements such as magic, fantasy creatures, and worlds that, while influenced by the history of our own, are not quite the same. So she suggests that let me scooch on down. It's worth having a look at the Indie Author Magazine.com, Living the Romantasy. Common tropes: a female lens, the meet cute, strong heroine who saves the day, enemies to lovers, friendship and found family, and elemental magic and fairy tale retelling. So any one or many of those tropes are, you know, going to get you into that genre. And yeah, it was interesting what Nadine was saying, that it's getting more popular. So
So very fascinating. I certainly know my mother and my grandmother, before she passed, would have loved for me to write more romance, and I think I'm certainly more the heavy fantasy with a dash of romance than the other way around.
Myself that same as well. And look, you know, sometimes I like the unresolved sexual tension that never actually comes never actually is realized. Because then it's like, oh no, okay, well, that's over now.
I know there is certainly an element to, and a lot of TV shows hold it as well, where it keeps you engaged.
Yes, will they, won't they, will they, won't they? Yeah, I'd rather that they don't, but anyway. All right. I think that's probably enough. I think we better chuff off the quotes.
Yes.
Because and also talk about next interview is Sue Ellen Pashley, which is just brilliant. So with the fabulous Dead Set Press, she is releasing a new little novella, Talon Marked, which is great. So I got a chance.
Looking forward to that.
To talk to her, and that was very exciting. Even though she was in Queensland, she was in t-shirt sleeves, and I was, rugged up to the nines. Okay, but anyway, Nadine, thank you so much, and let's have a quote. What have you got for me, Laurie?
So I've got a quote from Anne Ando. One of the greatest joys of being an artist is that you start to see beauty where you didn't before. And once you start to see the world like that, it stays with you.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for writing as well. It's once you see the beauty in the written word and the telling the stories, and the same with artists, with just visually, you can't not see it. It's beautiful.
No, and you can't unsee it. This is the thing, isn't it? So it's when you learn some things, and it was something that Rachel said at the Raw workshop. Readers are writers. She said, "You really love words, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I really love words." Okay, I agree. I'm addicted. Yes. So there you go. My quote is from Edmund Lee, and it is, surround yourself with the dreamers and the doers, the believers and thinkers. But most of all, surround yourself with those who see the greatness within you, even when you don't see it yourself.
Love it.
Nadine has
Yes.
got up, and with the help of her partner, she's just got in and she is smashing it
Yes,
through, which is fantastic.
absolutely. And there's some great not D&D based, but certainly that high fantasy with your elves and your trolls and your goblins and your dwarves, and just there's so much of that coming out at the moment, and I'm absolutely loving it, particularly the cozy fantasy, which we'll have to talk about more another day.
Yes.
But that doesn't have the big dramatic battle to save the world, but the little battles and
Yes.
the family, and I'm loving the high fantasy, cozy fantasy at the moment. That's a lot of fun.
It is. I don't know if you've read any of Paula Mason's, P.A. Mason. She's an Australian writer, and she writes these fabulous little novellas. Yes, definitely get on there.
Yeah.
And it's her main character is an American. She's got a nice quirky name, I can't remember. But I haven't read one for a little while, but she is an American witch and comes out to Australia, and there's lots of little bits and pieces, and she's a bit of a klutz. It's all things. So yeah, she does a cozy witching mystery.
I love it.
Really love
That's
that
awesome.
Yeah, so that's good. So P.A. Mason, definitely
cool.
worth looking. All right.
So
surround yourself with dreamers and doers, Australian book lovers, and you can do that, of course, by jumping onto the Australian Book Lovers website.
Absolutely.
And if you're an author, we list your books for free. We spotlight them as we did today, and we try and chat to as many people as we can.
Please enter. Please tell us all about your books.
Yep. And if you want to just hear about the books or get access to the free giveaways, jump on the Book Lovers subscribers site. Yep. And if you want to really also help, leave a review for the authors.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Anywhere, or tell 2 friends, even if you're not on social media. Just say,
or just a couple of stars. Throw in a couple of stars. If need be. A lot of the sites let you do that.
Yes.
If you don't feel like you're good with words, I've got a few friends that are like, oh, I just can't write anything. Even stars, that will help.
Good. Stars are good. Yeah. And of course, if you love the podcast, please again leave us some stars and some feedback on your favorite podcasting platform.
Yes.
Or you can now watch us on YouTube and Spotify. Not that that's terribly exciting, because we're just yabbering about words, but sometimes it's good to see us mixing up, and you can see the covers of the books as I'm getting better, and I'm now doing a little bit each time, learning something more about putting end plates and all sorts of things on the end. So check us out there as well. Wonderful. And you can subscribe. And again, thank you to the lovely Hayley Walsh, and we're going to feature some of her books because she is also an author. So we're going to feature some of her books in the next podcast.
Marvellous.
All right. And so with our sign off, we nearly forgot, Laurie.
Absolutely. So let's take care and remember to read more Aussie books. Bye for now.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.